This is Tuesdays with Ted, where I share everything I know to help you elevate your life. What I wanted to do is I wanted to, first of all, let you know that I'm going to be going live on a regular basis here, 3 p.m. Tuesdays on the West Coast and 6 p.m. on the East Coast. And what we're going to be talking about is actually whatever comes up for me in the world of yoga, in life, in endurance athletics. Ultimately, I feel like at this point in my life, it's time for me to teach everything I know. So once a week here on Facebook and on Instagram, actually, I'm going to be going live. And ultimately today, since we are now officially in the new year, it's January 3rd, this is the first episode, and I want to talk about New Year's resolutions. I want to talk about setting goals for yourselves. I want to talk about setting what I like to call principles. So one of the principles that I like to talk about in my new year is mindfulness. So for me, what that means is I just pay a little bit more attention to actually what's happening. A little bit more attention to the fact that I'm driving, a little bit more attention to when I'm spending time with my kids. And so the idea is to take that, what I call my New Year's principle, and add it to many areas of my life. So, for instance, if I can do it with eating, or if I can do it with, eating, or if I can do it with my yoga practice, if I can do it with time with my family. So many different areas in my life I can actually use mindfulness a little bit more. So that's a principle I like to use that helps me throughout the year, just to pay a little bit more attention. And by the way, those of you guys that are there and you're joining, if you have any questions, feel free. So this is the first, every week we're going to go live, and it's going to be called Tuesdays with Ted. How much fun is that? And what we're going to talk about is essentially what's going on in the world of yoga, endurance athletics, but ultimately building our dream life. So that's really what I'm all about, and I felt like this year it's kind of time for me to teach everything that I know. So today, since it's the beginning of the year, we're talking about New Year's resolutions, or New Year's, what I like to call principles, New Year's principles. So first thing that we talked about was mindfulness, and just being a little bit more mindful in different areas of your life. And you can do it anywhere from waking up to doing a little walking meditation to eating. Happy Tuesday, Jamie. Nice to see you. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Jackson Hole too. And by the way, those of you that are watching, anytime you feel like you wanted to throw out a question or ask anything or have some input, of course, this is a two-way street here. So I just happen to be in Malibu, but you guys are in Indiana. I know Jamie's in Indiana. Anyway, so first one, mindfulness. Wherever you can actually bring some mindfulness into your life is just better, ultimately, right? Like, it's way better for me when I hang with my little girl and I don't have my phone next to me, and I'm not actually busy figuring out the other stuff and actually paying attention to her. It's way better to be at dinner with my wife and pay full 100% attention to her, because if my phone is I'm getting all these notifications while we're at dinner, she doesn't feel so good about that. And she always makes the point, actually. She's like, just think about if you get interrupted, that interruption is more important than the person that you're with. And she's so right all the time. My lovely wife, she's right most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time. Shelly Rogers says, where can you find more yin yoga? I'm hooked. Shelly, I've been doing that same sequence for almost 20 years, so I would continue doing that sequence. I can throw up a few more. I have on my yoga studio, 5 Point Yoga here in Malibu, I have an online video portion of that. That's a little membership site. There is a yin yoga session in there. It's the same as the one on Beachbody On Demand. Similar, not exactly the same, but similar. But I can create some more for that, and I can create some more for Beachbody. But anyway, so mindfulness, number one thing. Paying attention is a New Year's principle that I like to have for myself. And another thing too is finishing for me. For me, finishing is such a big deal because I can start a conversation, I can say, hey, let's do this, or hey, let's do that, or hi, nice to meet you, and have a conversation. Someone hands me a business card, and then maybe I follow up and maybe I don't follow up because I have so many different things that I'm doing and so many different things that I'm thinking about and that I want to do. And I feel blessed because I love life so much. So I really want to take in as much as I can, and I want to experience life to the fullest. And that means every moment. For me, it means being here with you now. It means, planning my trips. It means going for a bike ride. It means going, whatever I can possibly do to make my life better. I feel like I want to do that. I want to take the steps to do that. And I also believe firmly that there's a ripple effect in that. Just part of the reason why I'm here now is because my hope is that my enthusiasm for life, my excitement for life actually transmits the Ethernet a little bit. And now we can kind of encourage, it's like contagious, right? And we can encourage other people to actually be excited and get outdoors and do stuff and exercise and eat right. And you just look around and there's so many people who just seem to suffer on a regular basis. And I feel bad about that because I don't think we have to suffer. I don't think it's necessary that we actually have to suffer. I think sometimes our mindset actually is really part of the issue. I think the mindset actually stops us from really living, what I would consider the best life that we can possibly live, right? I mean, I'm never going to be a 6'7" center on the New York Knicks, even though I might want to be at some point. That's not going to happen for me. But so there's obviously some limitations, right? But within our own experience, within our own world, there's definitely choices that we can make on a regular basis to really shift our perspective and to really help our own well-being. And that's one of the reasons why we're here. Chris says, Happy New Year to you, and my health event, 2 goals. Do a handstand and be able to do crane pose. All right, Chris, well, we can work on that. So here, this is good because I'll be jotting down some notes when I finish here. And every Tuesday, 3 p.m., on the East Coast, 3 p.m. on the West Coast, 6 p.m. on the East Coast. We'll be coming back on a regular basis, and you'll see I'll post it on the page, and I'll say, okay, today we're going to talk about this. So maybe Chris will do handstands next week. So back to our New Year's principles. So finishing is really important. Talked about mindfulness, talked about finishing. Finishing for me is a big deal because I have so many things, and I want to take advantage of every single moment, but sometimes I have unfinished business, and I walk around with what would be considered ill-digested experiences. So Ram Dass used to talk about that we're walking around with these ill-digested experiences, and it's tricky because it's so easy for us now to just leap from one moment to the next moment to the next moment to the next moment and not actually take some time and really absorb what just happened. And this is what's so great about yoga. Yoga, you're guaranteeing yourself Shavasana, that final pose where you lie flat on your back and you rest. And in a way, that allows you to kind of assimilate the whole experience of what you just went through. So all the breath, all the movements, all of the experiences, all the release of tension and toxins and all the stuff that happens in your yoga practice. Shavasana is the few minutes. I don't care if it's 30 seconds or if it's 15 minutes. The idea is to actually really enjoy that process and digest it, right? I mean, think about if you just had a big, huge meal and you didn't give yourself time to have the lovely dessert. You want to give yourself some time before you have the lovely dessert. So for me, that's one of the other principles. I want to make sure, so I'm doing these trips, right? We'll be headed to Jackson Hole, and we have almost 40 people going to Jackson Hole with us, so we're very excited about that. It's February 8th through the 12th for our ski yoga trip. And if I don't cross the T's and dot the I's, stuff gets left out. And last year we had Madison, and so I actually didn't get to go on the trip. My wife and I were here having a baby. And so I had to hire somebody else to help do all the logistics for the trip. And there was one person who I wasn't able to things were falling through the cracks a little bit. And I wasn't sure if this guy and his wife were going to even show up. They were from Canada. They wound up showing up, and it was kind of a funny moment. And they're actually coming back again this year. But anyway, so finishing is a big deal. So that's another one for me. Mindfulness and finishing, because I like to be clean. It's, in a way, it's like honesty, right? So years ago, those of you that know, my history is a lying, cheating, little criminal teenage kid, even in my early 20s a little bit, but don't tell anyone. And so eventually I kind of cleaned myself up, and I gained a conscience. And I stopped lying because I knew lying wasn't good for me. And I knew lying wasn't helping anyone. And I knew lying wasn't helping myself. And so, nor was the cheating, nor was the stealing and all that sort of stuff. So there's lots of stories that we could talk about in there. We won't go into it now. But the point is that now I walk around free. I walk around free, totally myself. I'm not trying to cheat anybody. I'm not lying. I'm not stealing from anybody. And so that's another thing too, is similar to finishing. If I finish a project, then I can cleanly walk into the next project. And if I'm not lying, I have nothing to worry about. It doesn't matter. I'm just truthful and honest and authentic with who I am. And that is one of the most important things. That's how I live now, so I'm not making that a New Year's principle. If that's something for you, you can feel free to make that a New Year's principle. But for me, finishing is the key thing. Cross the T, dot the I, put it in the box, file it away until you don't need it anymore. Like right now, we're working on getting all our paperwork done for 2016 tax season. So we're filing everything away. And then once we cross the I's, dot the T's, file, so I don't have to go on an extension and have my files backed up and all that sort of crazy stuff. So that's another thing, right? Mindfulness, finishing. And then one of the other things too for me is arriving early. Believe it or not, I always tend to leave like one little tiny minute to get there, or I arrive a minute or two late. So for me, oh, you're welcome, Chris. Thank you. For me, arriving early is a big deal. And what I like to do is to have a little bit more time. So I told this story before, but Jeannie, I remember you as a teenage kid. Oh, well, I very appreciate that, Jean. She said, the man I grew up to be is very refreshing. Oh, the stories that we could tell from back in our high school days. Hysterical. Anyway, so arriving early is a big deal. For me, I always rushed. I lived in New York City for a long time. Grew up on Long Island, lived in New York City. Now I've been in LA for the last 25 years. But I would always rush to the train. And if I'm rushing to the train, then I'm leaving myself barely 1 minute to actually get on the train. And I think one time in the 5 years I lived in the city, I missed the train, but I was always rushing to the train. And then I would have this inner critic inside saying, you're such a jerk. Why didn't you give yourself more time? Why don't you have your shit together? And why is it that you're always late? Right? And that was the inner voice inside my head. Excuse me. And it wasn't until I was in a plane, actually in an airport, on my way to a plane. It wasn't my fault that the plane was late, but I was once again rushing. And then I was like, running like that old commercial of someone we won't talk about, like the old OJ commercial, running through the airport, hoofing it to get to my next plane. And I was like, Don't worry, you're gonna make it. It's gonna be fine. Relax your shoulders, keep breathing, you got this, right? And all of a sudden there was this inner coach that happened. And what I realized is that for me, it was so important to tap into that inner coach as opposed to that inner critic. And that's one of the things that, for this year, one of my principles, my New Year's principles that I'm going to apply to many areas of my life is arriving early. Because when I arrive early, then I'm more relaxed. I can take a moment, I can have a chat with somebody before, whether it's a client or a class or an appointment. I don't have to stress out. I don't have to worry about traffic if I'm leaving and give myself 10 minutes, or I don't have to rush if something happens and there's a flood. I mean, this is, it looks like we're going to have a lot of rain here in Southern California this year, so there might be more floods on the PCH. Hopefully not. But anyway, the point is, ultimately, I want to keep that sense of calmness and that sense of kind of relaxation. I get excited, and that stress kind of feeds that, right? It feeds on it. So if I'm rushing around all the time, then it becomes a little bit too stressful. And if one of my New Year's principles is mindfulness, and I'm paying more attention and kind of staying calmer and being more in the moment, and another principle is finishing, that means I need to also give myself more time, so I need to arrive early, right? So those are my three things. I'm just going to hit this little thing. Those are my three things that I really want to implement this year as my New Year's resolution. So my New Year's principles, like I call them. And those of you that have joined me, I very much appreciate it. You can always hit, when I'm done here in a moment, you can hit subscribe to all the live sessions that I'll do. But I'm creating this show. It's called Tuesdays with Ted. And we're going to talk about all things on how to build your dream life. From yoga, and this year it's January 3rd, so we're going to do the New Year's principles, right? So you can look back if you joined late. But we'll talk about any kind of science, physical, nutrition, anything that I'm learning about that helps me build my dream life. I want to share that with you. It's my time now to start to teach everything that I know. And that comes from family stuff, to financial stuff, to travel stuff, to, like I said, science, to yoga, to meditation, on and on and on and on. So if there's anything that you feel like you want to know, then ask me. Like Chris was asking before about handstands and crane pose. So maybe we'll do a little demonstration next week about handstands. And otherwise, have an amazing week. Thank you so much for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you next week.